Is Starbucks out of your favorite Ethiopian coffee blend because of trademark violations? Does having to wear a mask indoors at Home Depot for 10 whole minutes make you feel oppressed? Is the bagger taking way too long to put all your groceries in the stack of sticky canvas bags you brought an unforgivable inconvenience? If your drama lasts for more than 24 hours, talk to your therapist, a disabled veteran, or a homeless person to find out if Get Over It from April Pharmaceuticals is right for you. Independent studies show that Get Over It's abnormal foibles unleash your brain's natural ability to everything from expired coupons, French subtitles, quinoa shortages, low thread count sheets, low T, critical race theory, being called a colonizer, and much, much more. 4 out of 5 school board members violently attacked by Karens over mask mandates recommend Get Over It to their local PTA chapters. So if you're ready to stop complaining about vaccine mandates, to listen to experts instead of your drunk uncle, or to experience big tolerance energy, to just be a reasonable person again.
Side effects may include temple grand thumb, swollen episcopals, ancient Chinese defects, boiling eye syndrome, James Brown nose, boogie fever, dark side of your moon, Marvel pancreatic universe, noisy sports car penis, Stevie Cricks, boils in the hood.
When your ex-spouse's insurance no longer covers Don't Give a Fuck, try Get Over It from April Pharmaceuticals. Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, in front of a live teleconferenced audience, it's the What's Update with Xander Kwiecien.
Season 3, Crackpots, Karens, and Robber Barons.
Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Kwiecien. Let's get started. We're going to kick off the show with one of my personal favorite news segments, Nerd News.
Yep.
A Warhammer store in Thailand has gone beyond nerdy and, among other projects, built an Imperial Knight out of a Volkswagen. Their attention to detail is such that after they made a base out of cement and steel fiber to hold the more than 4 tons of the Knight's weight, they textured the base with sand, grass, and even a cactus. There's no word yet on whether or not they'll make an Invictor tactical warsuit, so if you happen to see a fully erect bear diligently refreshing his browser, tell Rex Kirby to get back to work. Our next episode is in 2 weeks. Former TV Starship Captain William Shatner is now the oldest person to visit space. Hitching a ride aboard one of Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rockets, the 90-year-old former Captain Kirk briefly reached the edge of space before returning safely down to Earth. I've actually met Mr. Shatner, as you can see in this photo we took together. I've also met several other members of the original Star Trek crew, so I guess that means, by the transitive property of photography, I have been to space too. We're Jews in space, zooming along, protecting the Hebrew race. That's for all the Mel Brooks fans out there.
Yeah, buddy.
Otherwise known as most of the Gen Xers in my audience. As we shoot this episode, Hollywood below-the-line workers seem to be about to go on strike. The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which represents more than 60,000 set builders, costume designers, video engineers, and other behind-the-scenes workers, will begin striking on Monday unless they win concessions on bathroom and meal breaks, as well as a larger share of pandemic-era profits. During the pandemic, streaming profits have gone through the roof, and these workers see none of that money, since their contracts are so old that they refer to DVD and VHS revenue. We wouldn't be surprised if their retirement is paid in typewriter ribbons and pogs. Let them meet pudding pops! A Colorado woman was recently told that she was being removed from the kidney transplant wait list after refusing to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Organ transplant recipients and living donors are required to be vaccinated against hepatitis B, MMR, and other diseases, including COVID-19, since, because of anti-rejection medications, transplant recipients have a significantly higher mortality rate compared to the general population. The woman was also angry to find out that no one will install new carpet while your house is still on fire. The Food and Drug Administration is recommending a booster shot to recipients of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, though they may be better off with a Moderna or Pfizer booster shot. J&J patients that are given a Moderna booster increase their antibodies 76-fold over 15 days. Those given a Pfizer-BioNTech booster increased antibodies 35-fold, while a second dose of the Johnson & Johnson shot only increased antibody levels 4-fold. TLDR, much like porn, if you start out with weak Johnsons, adding more Johnsons isn't likely to improve the situation much.
That's dirty.
The censor's gonna love that one. Luckily we don't have any.
Yep.
If you think you possibly understand how hard it is to be a black person in America, wait until you hear how hard it is to be a black native on an Indian reservation. Freedmen, who are the descendants of former slaves once owned by Native Americans and transported to reservations as their property, were freed by treaty obligations after the Civil War. Lately, freedmen have been segregated and have had their rights eroded to the point that the Indian Health Service denied them COVID vaccines on Native American reservations.
No.
I wonder who put those orders in. Chief punching down, perhaps?
Oh. No.
No. This is going to be a fun episode.
Woohoo.
LinkedIn is ending service in China. In its place, LinkedIn, a Microsoft company that was already self-censoring, will offer a new job posting app for the Chinese market that won't have any social networking features. Well, what do you know? An American company caving into the Chinese pressure, and for once, it isn't Disney. What a world. What a world. A Norwegian man attacked people with a bow and arrows in Kongsberg, a town of 26,000 people about 50 miles southwest of Oslo. The suspect, a 37-year-old man, has been taken into custody, and the case is being considered a terrorist attack. 4 women and 1 man were killed, and several more were wounded. Now, this is a terrible tragedy. But I'd be lying if my first thought wasn't, geez, Disney Plus is going way too far in their Hawkeye publicity. A Florida Republican Party chapter may miss their FEC filing deadlines after their accountant died, taking all the passwords with him to the grave. Greg Prentice was a well-known anti-vaxxer, often taking to social media to rant about mask mandates and Fauciism, and, unsurprisingly, died suddenly after contracting COVID.
Dumbass.
Unfortunately, Prentice was not only the accountant for the Hillsborough County GOP, he also developed the software that converted QuickBooks data for the submission to the FEC. The Hillsborough Executive Committee said in its submitted FEC notice that without his passwords, all the information will now have to be inputted manually. Well, you know, I just hope they wash their hands after touching that keyboard, is all I'm saying. You can't have a story about reprobate Florida Republicans without Texas Republicans rushing in to engage in some epic one-upmanship. After briefly being blocked by a lower court, Texas's draconic...
What? That's racist.
Oh, sorry, Craig. Let's say Texas's Taliban-esque abortion ban is back in effect. A spokesman for the Justice Department said the Biden administration will ask the Supreme Court to block the law while a challenge moves forward. In the meantime, remember ladies, you don't need a license to carry a gun in Texas, so your new most effective prophylactic also comes in Magnum.
Oh, damn.
And finally, a top administrator with the Carroll Independent School District in Southlake, Texas, advised teachers to teach both sides of so-called controversial subjects, and as an example, called out the Holocaust. According to audio recorded by one of the teachers, Gina Petty, the Carroll School District's executive director of curriculum, told the teachers to remember the concepts of Texas House Bill 3979. HB 3979 is one of the 666, that's right kids, 666, horrible laws that Texas Governor Greg Rolling Bag of Shit Abbott and his fellow Republican Red Armband aficionados forced through this September. The law requires teachers to present multiple perspectives when discussing widely debated and currently controversial issues. On the recording, Petty says, and make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has opposing perspectives. I mean, What's next?
All right, children, today we'll be talking about the crucifixion of Christ. Let's look at things from the Romans' point of view. You know, Jesus did lip off to the cops and had very anti-capitalist views. He was also way too soft on Samaritan immigration. Quite frankly, the Romans were 100% right to pin his hippie ass to a tree for even suggesting that people should be nice to each other.
As a wise man once said, how do I know that Jesus was a black man? He got tortured for a confession and then got murdered by the cops.
Oh, damn.
Stick around. We'll be right back.
Woohoo! Yeah! Woohoo! Woohoo! Yeah! Yeah, buddy! Woohoo!
Welcome back. Now, I'm not sure what I find more baffling or grotesquely funny these days than seeing a bunch of maggot bubbas waving signs proudly proclaiming, "My body, my choice." Of course it is, Pumpkin. I mean, you can tell that Billy Badass here really believes it. That is, except for when it applies to the bodily autonomy of people of color, immigrants, the LGBTQ community, or women. This is neither the first nor last time you'll see very loud displays of the old parental chestnut of, do as I say, not as I do. So, how is it possible for them to profess blatant contradictory positions like masks are a violation of my right to control my own body, but women having a say about what goes on in their uterus is out of the question? Are they insane? Probably. But here's the thing. They are suffering from a fairly common problem known as cognitive dissonance. For those who haven't gone through Freshman Psychology 101, I'll explain. Cognitive dissonance is a psychology theory that explains how people deal with information that contradicts firmly held attitudes, beliefs, feelings, or behaviors. When presented with conflicting information, an individual will feel discomfort and look for ways to resolve the contradiction. In some cases, people will adopt attitudes or behaviors inconsistent with verifiable facts or observations. Think of it as an extreme form of the inability to identify irony. But Xander, I hear you saying, how can they not know? Are they stupid or just belligerent? ¿Por qué no los dos? As it turns out, the phenomenon is not all that uncommon. A person with diabetes knows that they should reduce their sugar intake, but still occasionally reaches for a Snickers bar. A smoker is aware of the research dating back to Germany in the 1920s, proving a connection between health issues and their nasty-ass habit, even as they light up another smoke. More recently, the CDC reports that up to 99% of Americans currently dying from coronavirus are unvaccinated, and people still refuse to pull up their big boy britches and get the shot. Cognitive dissonance allows people to persist in actions, attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors not in their best interest, despite evidence proving harm. It is not just isolated to the Trump supporters that live in poverty, but are absolutely certain that he understands people like them. The Flat Earth Society boasts about having members around the globe. People post memes on Instagram complaining about the toxic nature of Instagram. Homosexuals want unlimited access for firearms, but not for black people. Evangelicals loudly proclaim their close personal relationship with Jesus because he loves everyone, but they have no problem with telling you about all the people they hate for not loving Jesus exactly the same way that they do.
Yeah.
So, how can they be like this? Can't they see the hypocrisy? Can't they hear the irony? Are they so blissfully unaware that the contradictions escape them? Well, yeah. When people are forced to process contradictory beliefs or attitudes, they will endeavor to change something to create consistency. In these cases, the inconsistency between their strongly held beliefs or attitudes and reality creates discomfort. The person will then find a way to resolve the paradox, even if they must adopt beliefs not based on fact or verifiable evidence. For the most part, the phenomenon is mostly harmless. Everybody suffers from it now and then. John Mulaney fans have been dealing with a heaping dose of cognitive dissonance this last year and a half.
Yep.
However, it becomes a problem when these fervent adherents to ignoring inconvenient facts are creeping around the halls of Congress. Your crazy uncle can insist that vaccines are a way for George Soros and Bill Gates to put nanobots into your brain that will force you to help Hugo Chavez create the gay frog army. Sure, it's stupid, but he keeps an AR-15 under his pillow so he can single-handedly lead the revolt against the government when they come to take his guns. But when far-right Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor never met a conspiracy theory she didn't automatically believe green, stands in front of a crowd of Alabamans and instructs them to use their guns to scare off government volunteers trying to encourage vaccination, cognitive dissonance becomes a public health hazard. I fully understand that sometimes you need to tell yourself little lies to get through the day. One bite of chocolate cake won't blow up my diet. Everybody leaves their dog's poop in their neighbor's yard every now and then. I'll pick it up next time. My mom says my face has character.
No, she doesn't. No, not even a little bit. Not even once.
It's breaking my heart here. But where do we draw the line? At what point should we insist that the people flying our planes, treating our illnesses, teaching our children, or making our laws join the reality patrol? Would you trust a flat earther pilot? No. Would you trust an anti-vaxxer pediatrician? Well, I hope not. Would you trust a teacher that both sides the Holocaust? Is this even a real question? Like, seriously. Then why the hell would you trust Moscow Mitch McConnell, Greg Shitheel on Wheels Abbott, or Donald fucking Trump with anything? You wouldn't let those jackasses pet sit your cat. For real, y'all, you gotta be a Simone Biles-level mental gymnast to rationalize letting any of those sketchy motherfuckers anywhere near the steering wheels of power. Cognitive dissonance is a fairly common psychological phenomenon, but if you can rationalize letting these dickless wonders make life or death decisions on your behalf just because you believe your invisible sky friend hates all the same people they do, you are knuckin' futs. We'll be right back with Rebecca Trent. Stick around.
Yeah!
Welcome back. We are really excited about this one. It's our first in-person interview since before the plague, and it's our first on-location interview ever. So let's jump right in with our 3 standard questions. Who you, what do, and why?
Well, my name is Rebecca Trent, and I am one of the owner-operators of the Creek and the Cave in Austin, Texas. And I do it because I love comedy.
How long have you been running the club?
The club opened on April 1st, 2021, so we're brand new. And
April 1st? You're kidding me.
Yeah, well, we've actually set that date for plausible deniability in case we weren't able to make it. We were going to be able to go, haha, just joking, but we made it. We opened on the 1st.
All right. Is there anything that you have coming up with the club that you want to tell our audience about?
Oh, sure. Well, when is this going to air?
Should be airing in about a week or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think this is going to be on the next one.
Well, let's see. We have Ryan Long coming in. We also have, Jessie Mae Peluso is going to be coming in November. And we have Lori Kilmartin coming in right before Thanksgiving. And we have Stavros Haikas is going to be coming in February. We have a ton of really great comics. Mike Cannon, TJ Miller, Sean Patton, Jessie Mae and Carly are coming. Carmen Lynch is this weekend. Next weekend, Sheng Wang. It's just going to be, it's just great comedy every weekend.
Well, once again, Lori Kilmartin, and definitely hit us up on that one because we already interviewed Jackie Cation. So
oh, yeah, Jackie's amazing.
We can complete the full set.
That's right.
Yeah. So, how did you get into the comedy business in the first place?
Well, I was running a little theater company out of a Mexican restaurant and bar in Queens, in Long Island City, New York. And we had rehearsals, and the bartender would not show up on Sundays, but we still wanted to drink. So we left cash on the bar and just like drank beers. And eventually the guys were like, what's with this cash? And it's like, well, your bartender never shows, so we just sort of do it ourselves. So that's how I got the job. And then they wanted to sell the place, and I didn't like the people that they wanted to sell it to, so I bought it instead. And when I started running what was then, so I had never served a plate of food or a beer before, like a draft beer before in my life, before I bought the place. It was a complete like leap of faith, and I did it because there was a theater in it, and I thought that what I wanted to do was work with actors and put on plays, but it felt very, very, very low rent to be so close to Broadway and like putting on these silly little shows and I don't knock people who do it. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I love theater, but I couldn't get the production value grand enough to feel like it was okay for me to present it to the New York world. You know what I mean? And I worked with a lot of other folks, but at the end of the day, the people that I enjoyed working with the most and the ones who resonated the most with me and who made the most impact on my life were the stand-up comedians. I wasn't really allowed to listen to music growing up that much. MTV was against the rules, Madonna. I wasn't allowed to listen to a lot. So I think but my parents totally supported me like listening to whatever I wanted to on stand-up, which is so weird. Like I saw Eddie Murphy Raw, I think when I was like 6 or something, but whatever. I mean, like it's just, parenting's tricky. I get it.
Getting mixed signals here.
Yeah, exactly. But I grew up on comedy, but like weirdly never thought that it was like possible for it to be a job. And so when I found out that this world existed, I was like, whoa. And then on top of it, stand-up comedians are the most underappreciated and the most under-advocated for group of artists in our society. There is no HR department for them. There is no retirement plan. There is no health insurance. There is no union. There is none of that. And I think that I was really drawn to sort of like help them build a community so that we could start having access to resources and figuring out how to maybe function on a better level so that the comedy is better, because comedy is the only art form where we're expected to have an immediate response that's perfect for everyone. Like, you know, somebody's going to sculpt about it. It takes a couple of months, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes down, when comedy, I mean, these guys are people, these folks, these men and women, these people, these humans are writing ceaselessly, and they're writing about everything that's happening in the moment all the time, and it's such an incredible gift. Those that are good at it are so incredibly gifted, and I am like, it hurts me to know that sometimes they're not supported and that they're not given the basic tools. They're not treated like an artist. You know, the fact that we have that saying, everybody's a comedian, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Not everybody's a comedian, and I can prove it at every open mic that I've ever gone to, right? And there's nothing wrong with trying, and there's nothing wrong with keeping at it and getting better and better and better, but not everybody's a comedian. Not everybody's meant for this.
Yeah. Well, then, especially with comedy, like if you're good, you know you're good because your audience gets a guttural response where like they laugh instinctually.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
Like you can get anybody to be like, "Wow, that was a really good movie," or brings a tear to your eye. But if you get somebody to laugh, it's always, even if they're trying to hold it back, like I'm not gonna laugh tonight. So it's like,
Yeah,
like you know when it works.
for sure.
So, given the interesting history of the Creek and Cave Comedy Club, I'd like to go in depth on how all this came about. So, you moved your club from New York to Austin. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. In November of 2020, I announced that the Creek was no longer viable in New York, that we weren't going to be able to stay in that building. It was time to close the doors. And I turned in the keys on December 1st. And a couple of comedians got in touch with me, 3 comedians got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to open a club down here. I had never thought of that before. It was not something that was like on my bucket list. But they basically, what I said was, if you guys can make it come together, then I'll come down, I'll move down, and I'll run the club. And the deal fell apart, and then it was back on, and then it was off, and then it was on, and so I was just like, yeah, I'll come down. I really didn't, I had no idea this was gonna happen. And so a lease was signed, I think, on February 1st, and then on March 1st, or they got keys, I suppose, probably, on February 1st, and then I moved down March 1st, and then we opened April 1st.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year.
That's, yeah. What caused the original Creek and Cave to close?
COVID. I mean, it was pretty impossible to run. I lost my staff. I had one person working with me. And she was my lead bartender who became my chef. And then I ran the phones, bartended, did deliveries, and like packed up the orders and like all of that. And it was incredible being in the trenches with her. She's an incredible woman, and I was so blessed to have her by my side. But looking back on it, I wish I had let her go, like just like been like, hey, let's throw in the towel, you know, because we weren't really making ends meet, and the theater obviously was shut down, and I was producing shows in spaces that I physically had to be in attendance of, so I couldn't keep the creek open while I was there. So our schedule basically it went from 7 days a week to 6 days a week, and we had to cut out brunch, and we had to cut out a bunch of stuff. But we took the pinball machines out every night and let people play pinball on the street, and you know, we tried to sort of keep a vibe going, because it was really it was rough, you know. It was a really, really rough year, and I am deeply saddened by how many restaurants did not make it. Some of my favorite ones will never be open again.
How has the experience with dealing with COVID and keeping the Creek and Cave open been in Austin comparatively?
Well, I mean, it's been entirely different, because Governor Cuomo, may he rest in peace, started a campaign specifically making comedy outside illegal. So we weren't able to do anything from I think it was July until they opened stuff back up again.
That is weirdly specific.
It is specific. It was comedy, karaoke, and adult entertainment. So those were the three things that weren't allowed to happen. Which obviously nobody was trying to do like strip clubs outside. Like, I don't even know why they put that on the list. It was so dumb.
It's the logistics that concern me on that one.
Exactly. I mean, in my head, like, he's such a fragile little snowflake that a comic probably heckled him, like said something to him once that he couldn't clap back to, and so he never got over it, and he hates comedy or some shit like that. I mean, people are petty. Politicians are pettier. So at any rate, that was the rule. So they had really clipped our wings completely. And then as far as the restaurant stuff goes, we were able to do deliveries, but we weren't really able to have indoor dining. And then they allowed us to do 25%, which is great for a place like Carmine's or Bubba Gump or any place, you know, in Times Square, those huge places. But I only seat 19, so even if I'm open for 25%, I can't keep the lights on with that.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't possible. And I'm a mom and pop, like it's just me, but there's no pop, it's just me. So I was going to Restaurant Depot once a week and bringing like cases of beef and like, you know, whatever we were doing. And so like on top of it, it was like depressing. I was losing money. The building was crumbling down around me because it's a super old building. It was built before they had records of when buildings were built in Long Island City. So like, it's like, I mean, it just the whole operation was just like, it was on its last legs. And if I'm gonna be honest, it was really on its last legs going into the pandemic anyway. You know what I mean? So like, it was time for a switch. And there's some real inherent differences between the club that I was running, that I owned in Long Island City versus the one that we own down here. This is it's an incredible opportunity to bring comics in from both coasts and from all over the world who either haven't had an opportunity to come to Austin, or who, like, you would see sort of like normally in New York, but like I wasn't booking a place where I could bring headliners in so much. Like, they would come and use my space to like get ready for stuff. Like Colin Quinn developed Unconstitutional at my space.
Yes.
So there were major names that were coming through, but they were coming through for like an 8-minute set or a 20-minute set. It wasn't like, oh, Jerry Seinfeld's doing a weekend. You know what I mean? Not that he's doing a weekend here. I'm not saying that, but like, you know, but Jerry did come through once, because he came and sort of like opened Colin's Unconstitutional show, and then watched the show and like took notes and stuff like that, because Jerry's one of his directors.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are some like major differences, but one of the things that I was really happy about, and it seems like we've been pretty successful with, is still maintaining that community for younger comedians and folks who are coming back to it after so long from the pandemic, and folks who are you know, just trying out for the first time. Like, we have literal first timers come through here all the time, and it's just like, it's awesome. I love that. So, I mean, and we do have open mics every day. We did bring the pinball machines down from New York. We brought the marquee down from New York as well. I think that was pretty much it. I have a few pieces of artwork around here too that are from it. So, but the bear's new. The bear's all Texas.
Yes, we intend to get to the bear later. Don't worry, we're gonna bring it up.
Okay.
So, with all the different types of comedians coming in and the lack of asshole governors, slight asshole governors.
Still a huge asshole.
Yeah, it's still asshole
Yeah, I'm
governors.
not a very big fan of that dude either.
Yeah, neither are we. We spent an entire summer ragging on him, so.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so with all of that coming together with the Kwiecien Cave, how all of you have you been adjusting to life in Austin as a whole?
Well, I mean, it's a lot different. I have to get used to eating dinner much earlier than in New York. Usually, if I want Chinese food at 3 in the morning, I can get it, but I can't do that here. So there's been some challenges like that, but I'm super lucky because I live really close to the club, so I don't have to deal, like a lot of people complain about the traffic here and stuff like that, but like, I don't really have to deal with it so much. I mean, every once in a while I'll have to go to the airport or something like that, but like, it's not, you know what I mean? I like it here. I think that there's a lot of stuff that, like, how would I put it? I wish that it wasn't so music driven. You know what I mean? Like, we get it, like music, but like,
you don't
I
need
feel
your
like
own sound
everywhere I
system
go,
if you got all the music outside.
yeah, no, exactly. Like, I feel like every time I go outside, I'm listening to 4 songs at the same time, and it's a little muddy for me. You know what I mean? Like, walking down 6th Street is like crazy, and in New York, there's decibel laws that are much more strict than here, and they don't do a whole lot of outdoor entertainment, obviously, because you know our seasons are much rougher up in New York. So I'm not accustomed to like walking down a street and like being like blasted every time I hit an open doorway. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of a little bit of an adjustment. But at the same time, like this is where like Moon Tower, best comedy festival in America. Like Moon Tower's here. We have
not sponsored, ladies and gentlemen.
We've got what Austin City Limits is going on right now. I mean, there's just like there's so much fun shit going on in Austin, and it's such a fun town to be in that like it's like how could you not like it? Now I will tell you that I wish someone had told me that the roaches flew here.
Yes.
That was new, and fuck everybody for not telling me that. That's crazy. Yeah. How am I gonna find that out by like one just coming in? Like it's a horror movie. Like that is just like I could not have ever imagined. I was shocked beyond words.
When you're here for long enough, you kind of expect like, wait, you don't have the flying roaches up there?
No, in New York they don't fly. There's so much shit on the ground for them to eat. They don't need to.
It's like, wait, you don't have the sea snakes or the falcons or like all the vultures around? Yeah, you don't have those?
We actually do have a lot. I had raccoons in our backyard. Like Long Island City is like a weird waterfront town, so they're wildlife. Like there was a ton. We had coyotes there at one point. It's very bizarre. I think that it was a bar promo that got out of hand. There was a coyote for a little while in Long Island City.
It's just like, oh, you want to go to the zoo? The city is the zoo.
Exactly. Well, it feels kind of like that, but for bugs here. Yeah.
It is.
You think the bats would be doing a better job, right? Don't they eat bugs? I think they eat bugs.
They're taking their time.
They really are.
What do you feel, well, besides the obvious, is the biggest, most prominent difference between the comedy scene in Austin versus New York?
You know, I think that the biggest difference, and I would hope that the comedians would agree with me on this too, is that in New York, there is more revenue streams that are available for comedians. So the number of up-and-comers that have only been doing it for 2, 3, 4 years, they don't have day jobs. They're working in comedy, or they are just working at spots. You know what I mean? Like they get paid, they get by on spots.
All right.
And I have not found that it's very easy for folks here. And not to say that it's not, it's hard to do that anywhere, but it seems like there's a lot more comics down here that have day jobs, and I imagine that that's because there isn't quite as many opportunities. Like I can name off like 7 or 8 clubs that do decent spot pays and will book you, you know, pretty regularly so that you can get in New York. And down here, it seems like the paid gigs are a little bit more few and far between, or it's like, here's a drink ticket and like $10. So it's like you can't live off of that. You know what I mean? Like nobody could, so.
Yeah. And then especially you got to deal with, I assume they had this in New York as well, but here now that all the people from California and New York are all moving to Austin, the property prices are going through the roof.
Well, I mean, real estate prices in New York are never not through the roof. You know what I mean? Like, we experienced a little bit of a lull during COVID. Like, I have a couple of friends that moved into some sick spots, like in the Lower East Side and stuff, because they were able to, like, you know, building owners were panicking because there was such a vacancy rate. It was the highest that it had been in like 30 years or something. So when Manhattan started to sort of empty out a little bit, people started to get good deals on rentals. But as far as the property values go, I wouldn't say that it was really like, it certainly didn't go down during. But here, like, I think somebody told me, there's a girl that I know that works in real estate, and I think she told me that my apartment complex, the same apartment that I have, has already gone up like $600 a month or something. And I was like bowled over because it's like, I wouldn't pay that. Like, I would have never, you know what I mean? So it's just, it's kind of bananas that that the property stuff is going up so much. But I don't think it's because the comics are moving here. To be clear,
No.
I want to be clear. I don't think it's the comedians. I think it's more like Elon and like Amazon. You know what I mean? It's, we have a Bezos problem, not a comedy problem.
Yeah, it's like the amount of people who don't know how I-35 works over here. Like, I see the Iowa plates, the Wisconsin plates, the California plates.
Yeah.
Like,
and
you
it's
gotta
tech
learn the
people
rules.
that are doing this the whole time, and like Texas drivers are not the bravest of souls when they get behind the wheel, so it gets weird at mergers and stuff. So it's just like, you know, very highly. Everybody does the speed limit in Texas, which blows my mind. In New York, you just go, you know what I mean? And here, everyone's doing the speed limit, and I'm like, oh shit, it's 90. I gotta slow down because the cop's gonna get me. I have a New York plate. So.
Especially if you're rolling through someplace like Pflugerville. In certain areas of Texas, the cops are all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one thing
where did I go? Red Rock. There were tons of cops in Red Rock the last time I was there.
But one thing I can say for the tech companies, at the very least, if you turn on Google Maps to get someplace, the Google Assistant will warn you about speed traps.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Waze does that too. Yeah.
I was really surprised to find that. We were like on a road trip to Houston, and we were like, okay, there's a cop up ahead, we should slow down. And then obviously the Google's been interrupting this entire damn time. She's like, yeah, come on, I'm trying to blast out to Queen here. And then it's like, speed trap ahead. What? Google, you cool?
That's awesome. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. When comedians perform at the club, do you seek out the talent, or does the talent come to you?
Both, I would say. I mean, I have pretty strong relationships with comics and managers and agents, and so they'll come to me with particular acts that they want, or the comics will come to me directly. And then also, like, you know, I'll reach out if there's someone in particular. I'll be like, I don't care when, just whenever we can fit this person in. Like, I'll do that every once in a while. So it's a little bit of both.
All right. Kind of similar to our interviewing process, but of course most of the time it's just, okay, let's put whatever bait we got here and just, come on, let's get some comedians. What have you found to be the biggest issues with managing a comedy club during the pandemic, even in the in the New York Creek and Cave and here?
I think that we have been in a situation for almost 2 years now where we have put the burden of public health on the business owner, and that is a tremendous weight to bear during a pandemic. I mean, obviously, I want my place to be clean, and I want, you know, the food to be edible. I want inspectors to come through, and, you know. But it feels very nerve-wracking, and we've dealt with a lot of fear in the last couple of years. So I think that, you know, having folks sort of like take that moment and go, okay, it's all right for me to go outside. Now it's okay for me to go inside. All right, now it's okay for me to take off the mask. Like, it's baby steps, and people are sort of getting more and more comfortable. But I mean, I think that the biggest challenge is sort of like making sure the audience knows they're allowed to laugh. You know what I mean? Like, having, like, because we were all shut down as audience members for so long, and we weren't able to go to shows, and the shows that we were going to were secret, so we had to be kind of, you know, a little clandestine about it.
Or over a Zoom
try
call.
to be quiet, and, you know, now it's kind of coming back, and we're able to be loud, and, like, you know, I was in New York City last week, and I went to the stand over in Irving Plaza, and Chappelle was on stage, and Cypher Sounds was there, and Michael Che was on stage, and my dumbass left 20 minutes before Kanye West and Busta Rhymes showed up with a ton of other folks, and it was just like, it was such a, like, so it, like, definitely New York has, like, vibes and moments where it's like, all right, New York is back, but, like, I'll go to one place that I remember being a super busy bar, and I'll go in, and they'll ask me for my Vax card, and I give it to them, and then they kind of like don't really look at it, like it's just for the cameras kind of stuff, you know. So I don't know, but it seems like people are taking it very seriously as a matter of policy in New York, and it seems like here there are some individuals that are taking it very seriously and some individuals that are kind of over it. And I think that I want to continue to try to create a space that's comfortable for both of those folks to commingle and enjoy a laugh, you know.
Have you had any particular problems with people not adhering to mask mandates or mask requirements?
No. I also, we do occasionally, we have a show coming up this weekend that will be a masked show. For the most part, most artists don't require it. But I also have a generator in this space that scrubs the air, and it is placed right in between the green room and the stage. And it goes straight into this vent that goes out into the audience and just blows on them. So this air conditioner never shuts off, and the ozone generator is on whenever there are people. So I turned it on as soon as we hit the stage. Oh, nice. So we do take, and that's a sort of extra precaution that a lot of businesses aren't doing. But I'm lucky because I know a fella who's running a company that specializes in this, and so he was beta testing it last year. And was like, let's just do it. Your club's opening. Let's just put it in now and let's see what happens. And so far, we have not had any outbreaks. My staff is entirely vaccinated. I do require that my employees wear masks, mostly because I think that it makes other people more comfortable. I imagine that probably once we get into winter months and like flu season and stuff like that, folks are going to kind of start naturally masking up a little bit more, and then we'll chill out again, and then we'll have like that good week and a half in June that we enjoyed last year, and then we'll go back to this bullshit again. It's just never going to end, I think. Yeah, so it's sort of like a reality that we're just going to have to figure out how to deal with.
This is going to be going on for a long time. So have you had any problems with people being like worse about any of the masks or anything like that, like any anti-vaxxers?
No, I mean, I think that, I even have had, not currently, but I've had people on staff that we didn't see eye to eye on those issues. And to be perfectly honest with you, I am vaccinated, but I'm not somebody who believes that should be forced. I think that, there are certain things that maybe you should opt out of if you're not vaccinated for your safety. I mean, like I don't know, Broadway is so like close, you know what I mean? New York is different because everybody's on top of each other. Things are spread out a little bit more down here, so it's a little bit more, it's a little bit less scary to be in a group here than it is, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I believe that because the festival crowds were kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure ACL is killing it right now, and it's got to be, it's shoulder to shoulder probably. So, and those football games certainly aren't socially distanced. Jesus. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like people kind of expected me when I got here to be super, chill about it, and I'm not chill about it. I mean, as soon as this stuff started happening, I became a COVID compliance officer for the Screen Actors Guild. Oh. Like, it's something, and I worked with, I was really lucky to have a comic come through who also is a PhD in virology, and I got to speak to him about, like, his best practices and what he was suggesting that I do and don't do. As a restaurant owner and as a person delivering, like, I was literally walking down the middle of streets in New York City, like, because I didn't want to come into contact with anyone. Because I really didn't want to kill anybody, you know what I mean? Like, it was a real need for me to not, like, find out that I killed somebody's booby, you know? And my building got an outbreak of COVID, and I was lucky enough that my household wasn't touched by it, but, that was just luck of the draw. I didn't do anything magical. I didn't know anything more than anybody else did, and then I was also lucky because my mom had to have bilateral knee surgery in January, and in order for me to be her caretaker, they required in North Carolina that I get the vaccination. So I was vaccinated quite early compared to most people in my age range. Which now we're learning is maybe not such a great thing because the efficacy wears off and blah, 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 but you don't want to talk about this stuff. This is like, we've been talking about this for 2 goddamn years.
Yes. This has been a long process. Getting back to the club itself, what has been your proudest achievement as the owner of a comedy club?
Directing Colin Quinn in Unconstitutional off Broadway
That was amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
It was so good.
That was incredible.
Developing that with him and directing it on Broadway at Bleecker and then again at Cherry Lane was absolutely my crowning joy moment. I'm also one of the owners of Skankfest, which is a comedy club that's in its 5th year, or 6th maybe, depending on how we're counting. And we're going to be in Houston in November. And during the second Skankfest the third Skankfest we ever did, I got Colin Quinn to do a tough crowd with Colin Quinn. So
nice.
That was my biggest. Now that didn't happen at the club; it happened at Brooklyn Bazaar, but that was a big deal. And working with comedians that I would never otherwise have had a chance to work with because of the club, like Barry Crimmins, that was a really big deal. He was such a beautiful soul and so funny. And there were just, the Creek in the Cave is where I met Kevin Barnett, who was one of my best friends in comedy. And we all sort of like became this like weird ragtag group of like family sort of, and I was kind of like their weird aunt that would come in and be like, how can I help? All right, you guys are good, you know? And yeah, I mean, like there have been a lot, but the professional ones that were the biggest deal to me, relationships aside, the biggest deal to me would be directing Colin Quinn in Unconstitutional, and then somehow convincing him to do Tough Crowd again, which was, huge, because Tough Crowd is, from anyone in my age range, that's why we got into comedy. That's what brought us into it. And getting to work with Legion of Skanks and Jay has been incredible, because Jay Okerson was a Tough Crowd comic, so like all of that sort of like lined up and like weird, you know. When I first met Colin, I was so starstruck. I didn't speak a word to him. I just stared at him in the back of my club, and he was just waiting to go up and do a spot. And I know he was thinking like, who is this weird chick? But like, you know, eventually we became friends, and he liked the space enough that he wanted to like bring basically what was then a one-man show about the environment into and see if it had legs. And then it eventually became about the Constitution. So.
And then all that led into like a relationship that all started with, wait, where's the comedy club owner? She's over there, standing there, menacingly. Over time, have you run into any difficulties with misogyny or harassment as a club owner? Switching gears here. We're taking this from the high point down to the bottom.
Holy shit! That's the funniest way anybody's ever asked that question. And also, yeah. Sure.
Like either with you or any female comedians at the club.
Oh, good lord. Yeah, we have trouble with that all the time, because guys are fucking idiots, and sometimes they think they're better than. Sometimes they believe every word their mother says to them. You know what I mean? Like, you're not the handsomest boy. Like, just calm fuck down.
Yeah, that's why my parents usually call me ugly.
Well, we set the
Keeps
bar
me
low.
honest.
Yeah, I would say that there isn't I will confidently tell you there's not a single woman in comedy who has not had to deal with misogyny and whatever else. I started laughing immediately when you said misogyny. I don't know what the rest of the
misogyny,
words were.
harassment.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, we've all had to deal with it, for sure. For sure. I've had comics tap me on the ass because they thought I was a waitress at the comedy club, and then they found I was the owner, and they fucking fell through the floor. People make a lot of mistakes with me too, because like, I'm not like a known person. Do you know what I mean? Like there are some club owners that are like iconic, you know, like Mitzi and like Wendy and yeah, exactly, and you know, Richard and like all of these. But I'm not. Like if I'm behind the bar, like people will get like really rude with me, or they'll treat me like they treat service industry people, which is such a, I love it when that happens. Like, just tell on yourself. I love that. But yeah, we all have to deal with it all the time. And in Texas, there's also a sort of added sort of, I've noticed that if I'm in a group and if I'm saying this is what we're doing, the guy that I'm talking to will look to any of the other guys with me and go, are we all okay? Then yeah, we'll listen. You know what I mean? It's like they have to have that extra step to sort of. But sometimes it's adorable, right? And then sometimes it's like, what the fuck am I, you know? But and there's a different version of that you have to deal with in New York. Like in New York, they're like, you do that by yourself? Like what?
Oh my God.
Like it's that. Like they're shocked that they find out that like you're driving by yourself somewhere like that's outside of New York City, and it just bowls them over. I mean, New Yorkers were
What?
like,
Places
it was a
exist
lot
outside of New York?
a little bit. There's a little bit of that. I'm not gonna lie. You know, a lot of TV shows take place in New York. I mean, they're filmed in LA, but they look like New York. So it makes everyone feel a little bit more relevant there, I think. Than,
You know,
than
sometimes
maybe
you
they
have
are.
like some Toronto stuff in the skyline, but we don't worry about that.
Exactly.
Your mic, you need to kind of be a little bit more aware of it. 'Cause, yeah,
Right here.
there you go.
Yes, first time with professional equipment on audio, if you can tell. Now, like, getting back to like something a little bit more fun, just we got to talk about the bear.
Hold on, we'll get a good shot. of
Okay.
Because
the bear.
the bear.
We were looking, when I came in December of last year, we looked at about 15 different spaces. And there was a space that I loved that was 2 miles down on 7th Street, and this little guy was in there. And the guys kind of outvoted me and said that they wanted this space instead. And I was like, we can't. We have the bears over there. We gotta go where the bear is. And they were like, we'll bring the bear to you. So they, the guy was just gonna put it in storage anyway. So he just let us have it. And then Todd Glass came a couple of weekends into us being open and decorated him up with a bow tie. And I imagine that hat's probably from Dean Stansfield, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, just classy. We actually have a bear of our own on the production. We call him Rex Kirby. He's
That's
mostly a head
hilarious.
writer.
He's a bear of a man.
And like ending on a big jovial note, like the big question that we're asking all the guests this season, if you could bring back any 2 people from the dead for 24 hours, who would you bring back and what would you do with them?
I don't know. I'd want to do some research and find somebody who'd like had hidden treasure or something like that, and then I would want to bring them back and then find out where the treasure was and get it, and then
By whatever means necessary.
and then the other person, I think probably my grandpa. I just want to hang out with him for a day. I think that would be cool. Yeah, I'm not too fancy.
Well, that's why we give 2 options. Like you're gonna have something.
Also, I know my grandpa, so it's like not one of those like meet your heroes moments. Because what if they turn out to be an asshole? You know what I mean? It's like I'd just rather hang out with somebody I know's cool.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we get to the rare, quick, and simple answer for that question. Like most of the time, people are racking their brains. Just like, okay, who's the most important person that I have to bring
there's a
back?
right answer to that question.
Yeah.
I will answer differently every time it's asked. That's crazy.
Yeah, like usually when we ask that question, we have to be like, okay, but if you got to be really selfish about this, who would you pick then? But you know, it's nice to see just a nice, like, solid personal answer.
Yeah.
And treasure hunting.
Yeah, and treasure hunting. Gotta get the money somehow.
Exactly.
All right, well, Rebecca Trent, everybody. We'll be right back. Oh, hey! Thank you very much for watching. We'd like to thank Rebecca Trent for having us over for our very first on-location interview. If you'd like to check out the Creek in the Cave yourself, you can find it in downtown Austin at 611 East 7th Street. They got a lot of new acts coming up, so go and give them a look. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, it is what it is.